I got a question for y'all, man. Before we get into this video, what does greatness mean to you? When you hear the word greatness, what does that mean to you? You right there, that's watching this. Write in the comments right now what greatness means to you.
Team like Kyrie and KD, or the Lake Show with King James and AD. Wish I could match him up with the bad boys from the 80s, but no black and white, I need that in HD. HenDawgz.
Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy HenDawgz, and we back to it. You know how we do it. Making the case, Bill Russell. Shout out to Clayton Crowley too. He's given me probably 20-30 videos to react to, so I gotta shout him out because without him I wouldn't have these videos to react to. So shout out to him. Shout out to the Bird Gang. I'm pretty sure the Bird Gang gonna watch this. Was before Larry Bird, but it was still the Celtics though. So I still feel like y'all should be watching this video. And shout out to everybody else too, man. Shout out to everybody that's been rocking with me, man. I appreciate every single one of y'all. It doesn't go unnoticed. You know, the people that comment, like, I really do appreciate y'all. Like, this is an outlet for me. Me talking, me doing this YouTube stuff, like, it's really therapy for me at the end of the day. And the fact that y'all are involving yourselves, y'all taking the time out to comment, y'all taking the time out to like, just respect my work, man. Like, it doesn't go unnoticed. So I definitely appreciate all of y'all. And when I make it to 100 million subscribers, I'm gonna remember y'all, the ones that was around when I only had like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers. So shout out to y'all, man. But we're gonna get into this video. I really have no idea. Like, I can't really picture what Bill Russell's game was like. All I know is he won all them championships. They said he won like 11 championships or 9 championships, something crazy. So that's all I can really remember was the way he used to win. But hey, Clayton Crowley is saying that he has the, and not even just Clayton Crowley. A lot of people in the comments, say that Bill Russell was the greatest player of all time. I had a couple people that I've seen. So if you one of them people that say that Bill Russell was the greatest of all time, write in the comments why. I'm actually curious why y'all think Bill Russell is the greatest, other than him just winning, because winning is a team sport. You can't just say you're the best. If that was the case, Robert Horry would be one of the greatest of all time. So Bill Russell had to have been doing more than just winning. So write in the comments, why you feel like that, or why you feel like other people feel like Bill Russell is the GOAT. But let's get into this video, man. We got making the case, Bill Russell. Let's get it.
The size of the court and the lack of pads or helmets give fans the most intimate experience of a team sport that exists. And because of the different styles that basketball allows for, players develop their own distinct identities and signature styles through their creativity, flair, and athleticism. And although no player succeeds alone, the scoring volume and two-way nature of the sport give individual stars a nearly unprecedented amount of control over the flow and outcome of a game. For this reason, players are constantly compared to their peers and to the legends of the past in order to answer the most hotly contested question in the sport: who's the greatest to ever do it? For many, the question is redundant. They believe in only one right answer.
Write in the comments right now who your GOAT is. If it's Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Bill Russell, Wilt, Kareem, let me know who y'all GOAT is. Right there. You right there that's watching this. Let me know who your GOAT is. If you a young guy, if it's Kobe, if it's LeBron, let me know who and why. Why is he your GOAT?
Their answer. Others might have their own personal stance, but acknowledge one or two alternatives. But I believe that there's much more nuance to the question of greatness and more answers to it than you might think. By my count, there are 8 players in NBA history that have a substantial claim as the GOAT. It's a subjective thing though. I can't give you a definitive answer. All I can do is make the argument. So today, I'll be making the case for Bill Russell as the greatest basketball player of all time.
I feel some type of way that there's no Kobe one, but whatever. Bill Russell, let's get it.
Imagine what I'm trying to do. I'm speaking to the most data-driven, analytically obsessed, statistically fixated generation of basketball fans that has ever lived. And I'm not just speaking to you. I'm making the argument that the greatest player of all time is one who, rather than scoring in high volume or with top-notch efficiency, excelled at defense, an aspect of the game that went virtually unrecorded for this player's entire career, an aspect which, even today, the most advanced metrics still provide an incomplete picture of. More than that, though, this player excelled in the wrinkles of basketball, manipulating the fabric of the game into his own design. This player is remembered for his unparalleled ability to lead, to inspire, to foster cohesion and self-sacrifice in favor of loftier goals, to dance along the line.
Before we get into this, is there any player within the last 20, 30 years that we could compare to Bill Russell? Let me know in the comments, like, it has to be, right? Or was Bill Russell just that good, that dominant, that there's not been one guy that comes close to his style of play? Like, I'm more curious about, like, the way that he used to play, because I don't really know what his game was like.
That blurs team and brotherhood. These empirically irrelevant skills resulted in the most successful professional sports dynasty in North American history. To begin making Russell's case, I want you to remember these legendary words from NFL head coach Herm Edwards.
You play to win the game.
It doesn't matter who you are, what your abilities are, what level you're playing at, what kind of sport you're playing, or who you're up against. You play to win the game. Remember that as we talk about Bill Russell. You play to win the game.
You play
look
to
at
win
sports and
the
competition
game.
at its fundamental level. It is that simple. So, did he win? Hell yes, he won. In his 13 NBA seasons, Bill Russell captured 11 titles, more than any other professional team athlete of note. 8 of them came consecutively. I'll come right out and say it. If you want the GOAT conversation to be about winning, oh yeah, this guy had a great career, but this other guy just wanted to win more. This guy wanted to win more than anything. That's why he's better. I want winners. If that's the way we're gonna do this, then you have to crown Bill Russell. But was Russell an awe-inspiring athletic specimen? Nope. For that kind of player, you look to guys like Wilt and Shaq and LeBron. Was he a transcendent scorer? Like I said earlier, no. Players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were in another stratosphere in that department. Here's what Bill Russell was. He was a natural athlete at 6'10". He glided across the court with the balance and grace of a 6'3" guard. Vertically, he was springy and had the uncanny ability to seemingly jump twice in the same instant. He was strong, but surprisingly lean and gangly, 220 pounds of all arms and legs. He had a level of anticipation and awareness that was second to none. Put it all together.
So, I see that he was just playing against Wilt right there. So, how was the matchups? Was I mean, kind of assuming, just not really knowing, but if I had to assume, Wilt Chamberlain was like getting all these points, averaging 50 and 25, scoring 100 in a game, but he was just losing to Bill Russell. Is that kind of how that was? Let me know. I feel like that's how it was, but it might have been a little different.
Together, and you get the second highest rebounding average of any player ever. You also get the most domineering defender in basketball history. Historically, Russell was a basketball pioneer in an almost literal sense. In high school and college, he was told constantly that to be a great defender, you had to keep your feet on the floor at all times, so as to afford yourself the most maneuverability possible. Russell refuted these ideas, and instead leapt emphatically to meet defenders around the rim and block their shots into the arms of his teammates. Guys from back then described Russell as an almost nightmarish entity, someone who would lurk in plain sight and strike without warning. He would wage psychological warfare on his enemies through intimidation and exude an aura that demanded an equal amount of fear and respect. He could guard behemoths at his position like Wilt and Nate Thurmond, but he could also switch into guards with an insignificant...
I gotta pause that. They said Nate Thurmond. Shout out to Nate Thurmond, man. He went to the college that I went to, Bowling Green University. I always seen Nate Thurmond jerseys and plaques all through our gym. So whenever I see Nate Thurmond, I gotta shout him out, man. Shout out to Nate Thurmond. Hey, Ziggy Zumba.
Significant drop in proficiency. Moreover, at the NBA level, with Red Auerbach's help, Russell became the linchpin in the Boston Celtics' patented fast break offense. Russell would contest a shot, secure the rebound, and push the ball forward to his streaking teammates so as to attack a defense on its heels. I know that doesn't sound like much today. The fast break is a part of every offensive system in the NBA and has been for decades. But Russell deserves credit as being the anchor of the NBA's most prolific defense and for being the cornerstone of an innovative offensive system. Wait, Bill Russell was an innovative offensive player? But I thought he had sub-average offensive numbers. His shooting percentages weren't very good. He didn't average that many points. What are you getting at, Clayton? The truth, my good man. But seriously, free your mind from the idea that a great offensive player can only be the guy who puts the ball through the net. Russell's court vision and passing ability were the keys to the engine of the Boston offense. You don't care though. His stats weren't good, and that's that. So let's talk about statistics.
Before we talk about statistics, like they said, my full-time job, well, not anymore, but that's a whole nother story. But for the last 4 years, I worked in analytics for the NBA. Like, that was my full-time job. And even then, I'm still a guy that says analytics is overrated. So I'm not one of the people that's going to look at this video and not give Bill Russell his praise because he didn't average 30 and 20 like Wilt did. I'm one of those people that's going to read between the lines, and I want to see, what makes Bill Russell the GOAT, and I other than winning, other than those 9 championships. And Clayton kind of explained it a little bit.
The important statistics in basketball are supposed to be points scored, rebounds, and assists. But nobody keeps statistics on other important things.
It's more than that.
The good fake you make that helps your teammate score. The bad pass you force the other team to make. The good long pass you make that sets up another pass, that sets up another pass that leads to a score. The way you recognize when one of your teammates has a hot hand that night and you give up your own shot so that he can take it.
Facts.
All of those things. Those were some of the things we excelled in that you won't find in the statistics.
Pumping up your teammate when your teammates aren't having that good of a game. Like being that leader on the court. There's no stats for being a leader. And I'm assuming that's what Bill Russell was great at. I'm almost positive he was. I'm sure they're going to explain a little bit more. But that's another thing that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Being a great leader.
There was only one statistic that was important to us. Won and lost. Whoops, sorry. I slipped into first person there because I was reading a Bill Russell quote. As if my job wasn't hard enough, stats like steals and blocks, defensive stats, didn't start getting recorded until the mid-70s. The only stat I can give you is defensive win shares. Games that a team won that can be attributed in part or in full to a player's defensive contributions. No one has yet to come within even 80% of matching Bill Russell's 13-year career total in that category. And now we're back to winning. The most important virtue of an athlete, right? It's how this debate always goes. 3 rings is more than 2. 5 rings is more than 3. 6 rings is more than 5. So why isn't 11 the largest number? I'll tell you why. There are 3 main reasons that people don't acknowledge the most decorated champion of all time as the greatest of all time. In the order I'll talk about them, they are that Wilt was better, that his era was weak, and that his team was stacked. First up, we have his friend, rival, and antithesis, Wilt Chamberlain. The careers of Wilt and Russell overlapped for about 10 years, and in those 10 years, the two became harbingers of the NBA as we know it. Their friendship, play styles, size, and championship disparity painted the two as inverses of each other. They are immortalized together as 2 sides of the same coin. Because they played in a bygone era, many basketball fans take to all-time leaderboards and the pages of record books to gain a better understanding of these 2 men. Statistically, the comparison is a no contest. Wilt was and is a basketball anomaly. Wilt scored the most points in a game ever, had the most points in a season, remains the league's all-time rebounder, logged the most rebounds in a game, and so on. And not only did Wilt set all of these records, but he put the bar so far out of reach that we'll see colonies on Mars before we see all of his records surpassed. How do I even begin to suggest that Russell is the superior basketball player? Russell played in the same era, and so you'd think he would benefit from the same era advantages like Wilt did. But where Wilt averaged 30 points a game, Russell averaged just a paltry 15. Their field goal percentages are similarly lopsided. Only in rebounding do the two seem comparable, with staggering averages and untouchable career totals. There's really no argument, right? Well,
why do y'all think Bill Russell shot so bad? Well, I'm not even really sure how bad he shot, but I feel like, the way they talking, he wasn't that great of a field goal shooter, but I don't think he was out there shooting threes or shooting mid-range shots or nothing. So why do y'all think Bill Russell's field goal percentage was so low or not as high as Wilt's or Shaq's or Giannis's, like these big dominant dudes? Like, Bill Russell's out there playing finesse or something? Like, let me know what y'all think.
The two played 143 total games against each other. That's almost 15% of all the games that Bill Russell ever played in. In the 94 regular season games they went head-to-head, Russell's team won 57 times. In the 49 playoff games that they saw each other, Russell's team won 29 times. But hey, those are team records. Even looking at the box scores of those games and playoff series show that Wilt got his no matter what. Surely there must be some way to award a player for his individual expertise. Something like the MVP award, the most valuable player, the player who adds the most to his team and gives them the best chance to win, regardless of the players that he plays with. That should be worth something, right? Especially considering that, until 1980, the MVP award was voted on by the league's players. If Russell's teams were so unfairly stacked, surely his peers would see this and understand that he was simply the beneficiary of a rigged system, right? And they'd give Wilt the award year in and year out because he was the best individual, right? Right. Look, Wilt won 4 MVP awards during his career, but it's not as many as Russell. Russell won the NBA's most prestigious award, signifying the most valuable individual talent in the NBA, 5 times. The rest of the NBA looked at the Boston Celtics, however talented they might have been, and recognized that it was Bill Russell who made them tick, and they had no...
So they probably, back then, they was probably doing the who's the best player on the best team, because how did Bill Russell get 5 MVPs but only average 15 points? Like, that don't really add up. And how did Wilt only get 4 MVPs? And he was the one averaging 30 and 20 and all this. But they probably was doing that, though, which I'm not mad at. But sometimes, you know, that doesn't really necessarily mean that you're the most valuable player in the NBA if you're just the best player on the best team. But let me know what y'all think about that.
No problem voting him over Wilt. You want to know Russell's favorite award that he ever won in the NBA? His 1962 NBA MVP award. Why? Because that was the season Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double. And it was the year that Wilt averaged 50 points a game. Russell averaged 18 points and 29 rebounds.
Damn.
Wilt's Warriors would take the Celtics to a Game 7 in that year's playoffs, only to lose in the game's dying seconds. Russell held the Wilt Chamberlain that had averaged 50 points that season to just 28 in the most important game of the season. And in the finals, the Celtics would find themselves in another Game 7 against the Lakers, this time in an overtime period that would decide the champion. Sam Jones and Bill Russell combined for 9 points in overtime, giving Boston their 4th championship in a row. Russell would end the game with 30 points and 44 rebounds.
40!
And now, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I wasn't alive to see Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. There's a level of context I'll never have because I didn't live through that era. So why don't we hear from some of the people who did? Jerry West, Chamberlain's teammate from 1969 to 1973, said, "I don't want to rap Wilt because I believe only Russell was better, and I really respect what Wilt did. But I have to say, he wouldn't adjust to you. You had to adjust to him." 1975 Finals MVP and Hall of Famer Rick Barry said, "I'll say what most players feel, which is that Wilt is a loser. He is terrible in big games. When it comes down to the closing minutes of a tough game, an important game, he doesn't want the ball. He doesn't want any part of the pressure. It is at these times that greatness is determined, and Wilt doesn't have it." Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1990 wrote this, an open letter to Wilt Chamberlain. "It's been several years now, Wilt, that you have been criticizing my career with your friends in the press. After any tough test in which you didn't do well, you blamed those around you and quit. People will remember that I worked with my teammates and helped us win. You will be remembered as a whining crybaby and a quitter. Stats and all."
Oh, wow.
Stories abound about Wilt's infatuation with statistics, from correcting scorekeepers to scolding teammates for not making baskets that would have counted towards his assist totals. In 1965, the Warriors felt that Wilt was toxic and decided to trade him. One of the prospective landing spots for the Big Dipper was none other than the Los Angeles Lakers, where Jerry West and Elgin Baylor desperately needed someone to throw at Russell. The Lakers management decided to poll the players on whether the team should trade for Chamberlain. The poll resulted in a 9-2 decision against bringing Wilt to the team. Is it fair to call Wilt a loser? No. But did he make his teammates better? Rarely. Wilt played in 9 Game 7s. Russell played in 10. Wilt lost 5 of his. Russell never did. Okay, but back then there were like 8 teams, nobody was very tall, there was just a bunch of scrawny non-athletes. Russell couldn't hold Joel Embiid's jockstrap today. If you abide by the "yeah, he was good for his time but he couldn't hang today" mindset, I need you to be consistent. I need you to acknowledge that across the board. You've painted yourself into a corner that states that the greatest athlete will always be the newest one. That Aroldis Chapman is, historically, a greater baseball player than Babe Ruth. Because Chapman would smoke Babe Ruth like a dad playing wiffle ball with his son. That if someday the NBA implements a 4-point shot, you immediately have to look at Steph Curry and say, yeah, he was a good shooter for his time, but he couldn't cut it today. His era was easier. If he played today, he'd just be an average shooter. In that world, no one will ever hold the crown for long, because time will pass, and modern athletes inevitably age into ancient ones. So isn't the fairest way to evaluate these players to look at what they did in the context of their eras? 100%. I think so, because I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everybody had era-specific advantages. Great players are great because they exploit them. Alright, let's try to get some context. I think that Russell's 11 championships actually hurt him historically in this way. It's such an incomprehensible number that it just lends itself to people trying to poke holes in it or find ways to discredit him. 11 is just too big of a number, right? Jordan has 6, and we know the stories of all 6. We can remember who LeBron and Kobe beat to win their championships and what it meant to them. It's hard to do that with 11, and it's even harder to do that when they happened in the ballpark of 60 years ago. I briefly touched on 62, so here's a little more context for you. After 8 straight titles for Boston, Wilt and the 1967 76ers put the league on notice. They won a league record 68 games and disrupted the Celtics' streak in just 5 games. They put the ribbon on their season weeks later when they won the championship. And then, the very next year, the 76ers entered the playoffs with the best record in the league. Wilt led the league in assists and won the MVP. When they met the Celtics in the Eastern Finals, they racked up a 3-1 lead.
Hold on. So, we gotta shout Wilt out a little bit, because the thing that was kind of going around at this time was Wilt was just this scorer that couldn't win, and Bill Russell was like the team player, the good guy that everybody enjoyed, everybody liked, but Wilt was kind of the villain. And they said, like, once all that happened, they said he led the league in assists the next year. So that means a lot. Wilt probably was thinking, like, okay, I'm starting to see, everybody is not really rocking with this the way I play. We obviously not really winning. Bill Russell is this guy that everybody loves. He's a team player. So I figure I got to figure something out. I got to figure a different way to play. And end up leading the league in assists. So shout out to Wilt, man.
And then, as player-coach of the Celtics, Bill Russell engineered the greatest comeback basketball had ever seen, becoming the first team to ever overcome a 3-1 deficit. Wilt did not attempt a field goal in the second half of Game 7. Russell did damn near everything to ice the game in its final minute. 1966 was Red Auerbach's last year. He began the season by telling his contemporaries that this was their last shot to beat him. After defeating the Oscar Robertson Royals and Wilt's 76ers, the Lakers and the Celtics went the distance in the finals.
It was literally a Celtics player right next to him.
Russell helped fend off an intense Lakers rally in the final period, tallying 25 points and 32 rebounds to send his coach out as a winner. Go look up his teams. You'll see that 1965 was Russell's best team. You might think it was easier back then, though, because Russell was playing against a bunch of nobodies. And you've got me there. He only had to go through Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Hal Greer, Dolph Schayes, Oscar Robertson, Willis Reed, Nate Thurmond, Walt Frazier, and Bob Pettit. The fact is that the weak era argument is, more often than not, an excuse made by people who want to discredit a player from before their time who can't be bothered to look them up and try to learn about them. Listen, I know it's crazy to think about how long basketball's been around. I know it's crazy trying to convince you that the first truly great player from the game's first truly great era was the greatest of them all. The odds that the first model was the best model are astronomical. It doesn't make it impossible, though. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that 8 teams actually made the league tougher, or that players from back then were just as good as they are today. And I don't have to. We're looking at this in context. The league was chock full of Hall of Famers and all-time greats, and the Celtics played in enough Game 7s that any rational observer would look at it and see that it wasn't easy for Russell.
Definitely wasn't easy.
But wait,
they said, but wait, I feel like I know this dude. Who is this dude? I just seen this commercial before. I can't really think of it what it was, but yeah. So I think that was a really good point, because looking back, you always be like, Bill Russell won 11 rings. You know, he was playing against who knows who. But they said he went to like 9 or 10 game 7s. So history could have been a lot different if he didn't win those game 7s. It's not like he just swept everybody and shit was easy. Like, he was actually had some competition. He just won those games that mattered, which is why they say he's better than Wilt, because Wilt kind of, they said, froze up when it mattered. I don't know how true that is. You know, somebody write in the comments what they think about that. But they said, like, you know, Wilt was great first 3 quarters. But when the games was tight and they needed Wilt to score, he froze up. But let me know what y'all think about that.
There's more. Because it wasn't just that Russell played in a weak era. He played with the better team every single year. If you didn't know, I've actually already made the case that Wilt was the greatest basketball player of all time. And I said
to that next.
Bill Russell consistently had better teammates than Wilt Chamberlain did. That's as good as a fact to me, and I will maintain it even when I make the case for Bill Russell.
Who was his teammates? Who was Bill Russell's teammates?
Saying it. Bill Russell often had the best team in the NBA. And that makes sense, right? You don't win 1 championship without a great team, let alone 11.
True.
And Russell had a great team, a legendary coach, and talented teammates. Bob Cousy was the league's 2nd MVP ever, and John Havlicek helped lead the Celtics to 2 more titles in the 70s. Plus, guys like Casey Jones, Bill Sharman, Frank Ramsey, Tommy Heinsohn.
Wasn't Casey Jones the coach with Larry Bird? He was the coach for Larry Bird, I think so. Let me know.
And Sam Jones are all in the Hall of Fame. But is it that simple? Like I said earlier, the players voted on MVPs during those days, and Russell won 5 of them. So, however stacked his team might have felt to the rest of the league, they still acknowledge that Russell made it all work. And look at those Hall of Famers that Russell played with and how many championships they won. There's no way the Hall of Fame could leave these guys out, right? So was it that Russell was actually playing alongside a 12-man roster of Monstars? Or were those guys Hall of Famers because they played alongside Bill Russell? I would argue that he had the better team all those years because those teams all had Bill Russell. He never cared about anything other than winning. He put himself and his teammates in position to win, time and time and time again. I know I keep repeating the number, but 11 championships. That's not a fluke. That's a team galvanized by a once-in-a-generation talent and a once-in-a-lifetime leader. There's no evidence that indicates that the Celtics would have enjoyed anything close to the amount of successes they did without Russell. The year before they got Russ, they were 39-33. The year after he retired, they were 34-48. Russell would throw up before big games throughout his career. It was a ritual that his teammates initially found unsettling.
He was nervous.
But eventually, Bill Russell was cut from his high school JV team in his sophomore season. He was raw,
just like Michael
fundamentals,
Jordan,
and was driven by unrefined passion alone. Then, as a junior and senior, he led the team to back-to-back state titles. Colleges didn't care though, and he didn't receive a single offer from any college. That is, until a scout from the University of San Francisco saw him and offered him a scholarship. In his 3 varsity years at USF, Russell helped turn a relatively unremarkable team into a perennial powerhouse. He went 71-8 and won 2 national championships. His junior year, the Dons started the season on...
Bro was a real winner. He won 2 state championships in high school, then won 2 national championships in college, and then won 11 championships in the NBA. Like, if you don't want somebody like that on your team, then you don't want to win. Like, he's a proven winner his whole career. Like, it's crazy.
Unranked. By the end of the season, they were the number 1 team in the country and the national champions. In his senior year, the team went undefeated and carried the number 1 ranking wire to wire. At one point, USF had a win streak of 55 games. Crazy. Of the players on that team, only Casey Jones would go on to the NBA and, ironically, to play with Russell. Bill Russell is basketball Midas. Every team he touches turns to gold.
I see.
And oh, by the way, Bill Russell's career coincided with the civil rights movement of the 1960s in a truly surreal way. He endured a disheartening amount of injustice during his career with a grace and pride that is worthy of remembrance in and of itself. But he did more than that, using his position to challenge the establishments around him and effect change. He was a leading voice at the Muhammad Ali Summit in Cleveland.
This is dope. I was kind of waiting on this. I don't know why it took to get to 21 minutes for them to talk about it, but I definitely remember this being a very, very important part of Bill Russell's career and why some people consider him the GOAT. So Let's listen to this.
He was at the March on Washington and in attendance for Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. He didn't attend his own Hall of Fame induction because he thought that someone like Chuck Cooper deserved to be the first African American inductee rather than himself. He was denied rooms in hotels and service in restaurants on basketball road trips. And so he refused to play. When Red Auerbach retired after the '66 season, Russell became the first black head coach in any of the 4 major American sports.
While
he was playing for the Celtics, vandals broke into his suburban home, spray painted racist graffiti on the walls, broke his trophies, and defecated on his bed. His contributions to the civil rights movement are as important and notable as any other athlete. He helped light the torch that athletes today continue to carry. Does this necessarily make him the greatest player of all time?
Low key it does, but that's so messed up, man. All the stuff that he did for Boston. I'm sure the city isn't like that now. I mean, I really don't know. I have no idea. I've never been to Boston. That's actually one of those cities that I've never been to in America that I would love to go to. But like, that's so crazy to me. Why was Boston like that at that time? Like, he did so much for that state, that city, the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts. Like, he did so much for him. But they still wrote graffiti all in his house, and that's so messed up to me, man. Like, that makes me appreciate Bill Russell even more, that he had to go through all that and still be who he was.
No, but when you think about what he was able to accomplish, I don't know how you could be anything but awestruck. What is greatness? It's a question worth discussing, even if there are multiple answers with equal validity. One answer might be this: that greatness is the absence of potential. Bill Russell couldn't control how tall he was, or how much muscle mass his body could support, how fast he could run, how quickly he could jump. There are a host of things that might hinder or accentuate an individual's potential. Greatness is when, at the end of the road, you can look at that individual and say with certainty, there is no more potential. Every ounce got drained, every possibility exhausted. The tank got emptied, and the fight got fought. There was simply nothing left.
What does greatness mean to you?
That's a form of greatness worth celebrating.
Let me know.
Bill Russell didn't dominate basketball. He conquered it. He ruled a sport for 13 years. Any uprisings or revolutions were succinctly quelled. There is perhaps no term more aptly suited for the totality of what he created than the word dynasty. He was the greatest defender basketball has ever seen. He steered basketball into the modern era. He created a culture from scratch. His loyalties did not belong to fans or the media or to Boston. His loyalty belonged to the Celtics. There is such a thing as a Platonic idea, named after the philosopher Plato. Take, for instance, a chair. You know what a chair is. You have in your mind the idea of a chair. They might look different, be made out of different material, and serve different purposes. But a chair is recognizable because you
This is my last time pausing it before the end of this video. But posture check. Let's do a posture check real quick. Get that back straight. I don't want no bad backs watching my videos.
have the Platonic idea of a chair. You might have heard this term used to describe friendships. A platonic friendship is one centered around the very essence of friendship itself, not romance or sexual gratification or convenient utility, but simply because you enjoy being in that person's company. Bill Russell, more than anyone, unlocked the platonic idea of basketball. And I think in a big way, that's why we love sports. Sports is one of the most organic and compelling storytelling devices that we have ever found. Sports tell a story, and in that story, we hope to find pieces of ourselves. In the Platonic idea of basketball, we find things like compassion, selflessness, solidarity, resiliency, and triumph. There's one last thing that sums it all up. The 1969 finals. It's Russell's last year, and the Celtics are running on fumes. They finished the season 48-34, their worst record since they drafted him. Still, they roll through the East and find themselves matched up against the Lakers, with Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, and Wilt Chamberlain. The Celtics are massive underdogs. Finally, Russell's most bitter rivals will reach the top of the mountain and send him out a loser. But Boston won't go down without a fight. The series goes to 7 games. Every game but one is decided in the single digits. Russell's scoring days are over. These days, he leads his team by cleaning the boards and setting up his teammates. In Game 7, his swan song. In Los Angeles, Bill Russell and the Celtics did what they always did. They found a way.
They won?
And they won. Here, after cementing himself as the greatest basketball player of all time, is the platonic idea of basketball.
Here with Bill Russell. Bill, this must have been a great win for you. Exactly.
You don't even know what to say. Great ass video, man. That I needed that. I needed to kind of like just get some info on Bill Russell because I didn't know enough, and that was great, man. I think for me it was just great to just see like Bill Russell was pretty much like the pioneer. Like he was the one that started. He was like the blueprint on how to be a great teammate, what loyalty meant, like what just like being a dominant big man. Like he was the person that started everything. So I can kind of see why, you know, he could be in arguments for the greatest player of all time because of just the shit he did on the court and off the court. Like all of it goes into it, man. But I appreciate y'all watching, man. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Make sure y'all like this video if y'all like this video. I got more Making the Case videos coming soon. I will do every single one of them. This was one of my favorites just because I didn't know enough about this player and I got a lot of information on it. Write something in the comments, man. What I want y'all to write in the comments before we dip. I said at the beginning of the video, I'm gonna say it again. What does greatness mean to you? We out.